The Houston Texans offense is broken beyond repair. It can't be fixed. So what can the Texans do in their final 5 games and the hopeful playoff game to get to the finish line and try to turn things around with this putrid offense that they've had? Let's talk about it here on the live stream tonight on YouTube. Appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's dive into this offense for the Houston Texans. And as I started to comb through this offense, I wanted to take kind of how it feels versus what the numbers say. Now, the numbers don't ever tell the full story, because if you watch this Houston Texans team, if you pay attention to this Houston Texans team, you know that the feel and just watching it week in and week out, this offense is nowhere near where it needs to be. You watch other teams around the league, and when they have big-time quarterbacks, everything for long stretches of the game runs very smoothly. Yeah, occasionally the opposing team makes a nice play, but teams smoothly through 4 quarters operate with their big-time quarterbacks. The Texans are supposed to have a big-time quarterback. When you look at some of the bad quarterbacks, the average quarterbacks, the below-average quarterbacks across the league, even then, it still looks easier than the Texans on a week-in, week-out basis. I point to you to the quarterback that the Texans played on Sunday, Will Levis. He's not very good. There's some talent there. There's some usefulness to Will Levis's abilities, but there were things that looked incredibly easy for Will Levis early on in that game that allowed Tennessee to get comfortable, put some points on the board, and put some pressure on the Houston Texans. Allowed them to move the football. And it's not just the quarterback, but the offense as a whole. Tennessee is another reference point. Tony Pollard averaged 5 yards a carry against this Texans defense. And you notice when you watch where Tony Pollard ran the football and you watch how he ran the football, they got him the ball in a bunch of different ways. It wasn't your good old-fashioned take the snap, put it in his belly, and hope that the 5 guys up front take care of business. No, they put him in situations with draws and handoffs out of shotgun and various different situations. They put him in a better situation to succeed than Joe Mixon was in on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans defense. But you just look across the league, and it should be a lot smoother in Houston. Now, there's a variety of people to blame. We'll play the blame game here in just a minute. But how you feel when you watch it and what it looks like in the numbers, they're very different. I want to go through some numbers here for you, comparing last year's Texans offense to this year's Texans offense. Now, there are some big offensive outputs, the New England Patriots game, Indianapolis early on. Some of these things get skewed based off of it's a totality of the season. And really for the Texans, the offensive ineptitude has been a 6, 7, 8-week problem. It hasn't been a whole season problem. But last year's Texans team in points per game were 13th. This year's is 12th. So they're actually a little bit better in points per game. Now, points per game also includes the fact that the defense goes out there and scores for you. Points per game also includes the fact that Kaimi Fairbairn's kicking a bunch of field goals. That's not just touchdowns. Red zone touchdowns, though, slightly worse this year. 3 spots worse. 16th last year, 19th this year. Third down percentage, 20th last year, 22nd this year. Again, not huge numbers that you see some sort of massive drop-off. Passing yards per game, this is a little bit of a drop-off. They were elite last year, 8th in football, they're 15th this year. But the rush yards got better, 28th last year, 20th this year. Penalties per game. So I thought, hey, maybe the penalties are the big issue, those hidden yards. Worse in penalties last year than this year. 31 penalties per game, 30 penalties per game. And turnover differential last year, they were 7th in turnover differential. They're 5th in turnover differential this year. So where's the big divide? Where are things going so horribly and terribly wrong for this team? Well, there is one stat that really jumps off the page and really shows you just how bad this team has been after things hit a rocky patch, and that's the second half points per game. Last year, they were 14th in second half points per game. This year, they're 26th, and most of those points per game, as you know, showed up in the early portion of the schedule. In their most recent losses, where they have led at halftime, They led the Packers 19-14. They lost 24-22. They led the New York Jets 7-0. They lost 21-13. They kicked a couple field goals. The Detroit Lions, they led the Lions 23-7 at halftime. They kicked no field goals, scored no points in the second half. The Lions beat them 26-23. And, of course, they trailed the Tennessee Titans at halftime 20-17. It probably should have been 17-17 if C.J. Stroud doesn't throw the interception. But they trailed at halftime. They put a touchdown on the board via the defense. The offense sets the special teams up for 3 more points. Not good enough. Not good enough. So all those things, it feels really bad. Statistically, they're kind of close to last year with a couple of differentiators. So where do you lay the blame? Where do you put the blame? Where do you drop the blame? Whose feet does it go to? There's a couple of different places that you can go with the blame. Let's start with the guy that calls the plays. Let's blame Bobby Slowik for some of this. The offensive coordinator has not been good this year. He has not adjusted to the challenges that this team faces, and in game, he fails to adjust week after week after week after week. In the 6 games since the New England Patriots game, the defense has scored 2 second-half touchdowns. His offense has scored 1 second-half touchdown. His inability to execute with the players that he possesses in this offense, his inability to scheme things up for players that are struggling to get the football is inexcusable. He cannot make it work running this offense his way. And he has shown with a lot of evidence now to this point that he is not going to be able to get this team to run the offense that they practiced in training camp. They thought they were going to be able to execute to a high level. Remember when we were talking about the 4-headed monster of Nico Collins and Stefon Diggs and Tank Dell and Joe Mixon? The 4-headed monster is not scary, okay? They are a 2-headed monster, and you can't really ever get both of the 2 heads of Nico Collins and Joe Mixon going at the same time, in large part because the offensive coordinator believes they can accomplish things that they cannot accomplish. Sunday's a great example. They could not run the football. Bobby Slowik decided to continue to try to run the football, and he ran the football in uninventive and predictable ways, primarily to the left, primarily outside because their inside stuff was not available to them. You know why? Because the Tennessee Titans, just like the rest of football, know what the Texans like to do. Bobby Slowik runs a bastardized, unfulfilling version of Kyle Shanahan's offense. And this is supposed to be an offense that, talent be damned, creates a solid floor. Unfortunately, under Bobby Slowik, the floor does not exist, and the ceiling is very low. It's like you walk into a hobbit's house. You ever seen Lord of the Rings where Gandalf has to stoop down to get into the hobbit house at the beginning of the first movie? That's the level of the ceiling. Unfortunately, for the Texans, there's no floor like the hobbit house. They can be very, very bad on offense. Green Bay is a perfect example of that. This past week in the second half, and really throughout a lot of the game, is a perfect example of that. They cannot regularly capitalize off of mistakes that opposing teams make. They regularly make their own mistakes, in large part because the way that it operates is not going to utilize, or is not capable of utilizing, the talent to operate the way Slowik wants them to operate. He seemed unwilling and unable to change enough to get this thing going. So there's where the blame goes for Bobby Slowik. And I'll get to your comments and questions, joys, and concerns here in just a moment. So Bobby Slowik has not been good enough. Play the blame game with Bobby Slowik. Do I believe he's the chief person to blame in this one? I kind of do, because he has to understand what pieces he has on the chessboard. And really, sometimes he only has checker pieces and he's trying to play chess. He does not have an offensive line capable of operating the offense the way that he wants to operate. Laramie Tunsil can pass block. Laramie Tunsil's having some of the best run blocking of his career. The other four guys on the offensive line are not getting it done on a consistent basis. Shaq Mason's playing the worst football of his career. Juice Scruggs has taken a huge step back from what the expectation was of him coming into the season. And they moved Jarrett Patterson into the center spot because Kenyon Green was so bad, and then they had to figure out what to do at left guard after his injury. And Titus Howard is not good enough at right tackle, certainly not justifying the big salary that he has out there at right tackle. They do not have an offensive line that can execute the way Bobby Slowik wants to run this offense. They do not have an offensive line that can execute most of the stuff that they want to do on offense or that other teams would do on offense. And they've yet to adjust to the poor play of this offensive line. You watch Tennessee, who came to Houston with the worst pass blocking offensive line in football and got the ball out of Will Levis's hands quickly. Did not let the Texans defense get to Will Levis until they had to start running some stuff where Levis had to take longer dropbacks, let plays develop. But when Will Levis was taking 1-2 steps, getting rid of the football, it looked okay from Tennessee. And they found those a couple of times throughout the course of the game, and they were able to get the ball out of their quarterback's hands so he didn't get killed back there behind an inferior offensive line. It's a novel concept. I don't know why the Texans haven't realized they don't have the offensive line to operate the offense. That's why I put Bobby Slowik ahead of the offensive linemen. But the O-linemen haven't been good enough. And change for the sake of change is something that I would consider if I was the Texans. Play musical chairs with these guys. I don't care who the other four guys are starting next to Laramie Tunsil. Figure out a combination that is better than what you're putting out on the field. I understand that Shaq Mason and Titus Howard are highly compensated. Well, they're highly compensated. They need to play to that level. And if they don't, we hear about how it's the best 11. We don't know if Nick Broker or Blake Fisher or Kendrick Green are any good because they don't get opportunities in games. Now, they may be that bad in practice that you don't want to put them on the field, but it's worth seeing if they're game time performers, even if it doesn't work in practice. Shaq Mason, that to me, I think the epitome of this offensive futility was the Ali Gay sack from this Sunday. They had Ali Gay rushing off the edge, and the Texans had not accounted for him in a typical way. They had not accounted for him with a player on that side of the line of scrimmage. He rushed off of the left side of the offensive line, and they tried to account for him with Shaq Mason, who is slower than he's ever been, who is not as strong as he's ever been, and they tried to account for a clean rusher at C.J. Stroud with Shaq Mason pulling. He gets basically no contact on Gay. Gay sacks C.J. Stroud, totally torpedoes a drive, those negative plays that ruin drives. We see them time and time and time and time again in not only the first half, but especially the second half when teams make adjustments to what the Texans are trying to do on offense. And I say trying to do because they don't actually do what they want to do on offense. They just cobble it together with duct tape and gum and hope that Joe Mixon makes something happen and hope that C.J. Stroud can survive the almost immediate pressure so they can get rid of the football to somebody that might actually get open. So this offensive line, they shoulder a lot of blame with Bobby Slowik. I'd put those two as a tandem at the top of the blame game because you are not getting enough out of the O-line, and the offensive coordinator somehow, some way can't operate or realize that that is not the way to go. Couple of more names. We'll get to all your comments, questions, joys, and concerns as well. And, of course, if you've got a super chat, you go to the front of the line. C.J. Stroud deserves a little bit of blame. He has not been good enough this season. He has taken a step back. He's squarely in the midst of a sophomore slump right now, and you can make some excuses for C.J. Stroud. Sure, hey, the offensive line's not very good. The offensive coordinator not calling good play. Guys aren't getting open. There's a lot of that, certainly. But Stroud has to be damn near perfect from the quarterback spot, and he's shown that he can do that. I think back to the Indianapolis game. They came off of Green Bay, had a horrible pass blocking performance. They actually pass blocked worse against Indianapolis, but Stroud was just dynamic, was able to move the pocket, move around, still create plays, make things happen through the air. And the Texans were able to win that football game, in large part because C.J. Stroud put the team on his back. He maybe needs to do that on a weekly basis. How does he do that when the offensive line can't block, the rushing attack doesn't usually get going, and nobody besides Nico Collins gets open? Well, it's difficult, but you're a franchise quarterback. There's high expectations, and the way they built this offense is around him being an excellent quarterback. If they could dial it back, make things easy for him, he would succeed. You would see the accuracy come back. You would see him stop overthinking some of these things. Now, as far as the blame pie goes, I'm serving him a very small sliver, but he has not been good enough. He's made some risky throws that haven't gone correct. His accuracy is down. He doesn't have some of the clean technique that he showcased last year. That was something that he was highly touted for in that rookie season, in that rookie campaign. And I think back to the interception against the Detroit Lions when he tried to get to Tank Dell. And I think back to the interception for Nico Collins this past Sunday. He's on that front foot and he doesn't put enough oomph into it. C.J. Stroud's got enough arm strength to put that ball wherever the hell he wants to put the ball. He's got to put the oomph on it to make these things work and not throw those interceptions. Again, small piece of the blame pie, but he does not escape blame. One more name here that I want to put into the blame category for the offense, then we'll get to all your comments. Nick Caserio deserves a lot of blame here. He has built this offense in large part with input from D'Amico Ryans, but a lot of these pieces were here prior to D'Amico Ryans' arrival. So the offensive line for most of the season was the exact offensive line that Nick Caserio wanted to have in place. He left the 2023 draft with the hopes that Laremy Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, and Titus Howard were his offensive line. He extended Shaq Mason to keep him here. That contract sucks. Titus Howard, he extended him unnecessarily before last season. That contract sucks. Laremy Tunsil, he's obviously got the extension that he got. He's worth the money. Juice Scruggs was widely thought to be a 4th, 5th round pick. They drafted him in the 2nd round. He hasn't been very good. Kenyon Green was supposed to be a guy that was ready to go from day one. He's looked anything but ready to go from day one, and now injuries have severely affected 3 consecutive seasons, and he probably shouldn't even be on the team next year. That's 2 draft misses by Nick Caserio. He didn't need to extend Titus Howard. That's a contract miss and an evaluation miss. And he didn't need to extend Shaq Mason, but Mason was fine last year, but he fell off a map this year, and they're stuck with this contract. It's very hard to do something with it. That's a miss from Nick Caserio. So those 4 guys, misses. He did not have a competent backup for some of the worry spots on this team. Remember when this team had George Fant last year, when there was maybe some concern about the long-term health of the tackles for this team? They did not have a George Fant-esque player for the offensive line's interior. There's no big veteran who's played a lot of football, who's been successful to fill in. Their option when they wanted to bench Kenyon Green was Kendrick Green and Jarrett Patterson, a second-year player and a guy who, at this point, has been a career backup along the offensive line. They didn't have a guy who played a lot of football ready to take over one of those spots. And I'm sure because of some of the investment, they've been unwilling to make some of those moves quickly with those players. Juice Scruggs is not playing at a high level right now. He probably should get swapped out, but you invested a 2nd-round pick in him. It's very hard to bench a guy like Juice Scruggs when you used a 2nd-round pick on him. It was hard to bench Kenyon Green when he's a former 1st-round pick. And I know what you're saying. That shouldn't matter. It does. Team after team after team after team. Everybody, for years in the NFL, they give guys who have high draft capital invested in them, more opportunities and more chances. That's just a matter of fact, and that's why Kenyon Green stuck around so long when he was playing so poorly. That's why Juice Scruggs is sticking around right now at the left guard spot while he's playing so poorly. So Nick Caserio deserves some of the blame as well. And, of course, he didn't get a little nameplate here, but D'Amico Ryans is the overseer of this. He's the one that can tell Bobby Slowik what to do. Simplify things, Bobby. Swap out offensive linemen, Bobby. Don't run those plays anymore. Do run some more of these. The blame lies at D'Amico Ryans' hands as well. So now that we've got all that out of the way, let's get to some of your comments, questions, joys, and concerns. Of course, Super Chats will go to the front of the line, and I will try to get to, there's quite a few of these, I'll try to get to as many of these as I can as well. All right. Bubba Homeschool says, no doom spirals. We're on the same tier with the Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, etc. We have all lost to bad teams, been up and down. Keep the faith. Bubba, I wish I had your faith. There is no faith that this offense, this offensive line, Bobby Slowik is going to get better. They have been trying the same things, doing the same things, running the same type of offense. They talk about basics and fundamentals so much, and then they don't go out there and run them or execute them, and it is maddening to watch on a week-to-week basis. Stingray, hey, Cody, keep up the good work, providing us good information about our Texans. Thank you. Thank you, Stingray. Appreciate you. But try to get to, hit some of these earlier ones as much as I can, then I'll get to the current ones as well. Bobby to blame, make a change. If Mason's having his worst statistical season, bench him. I agree, Carlos. I agree. D'Amico is a head coach, not a defensive coordinator. He's got to act like a head coach and make some of these things happen, Good point, I must Pandaline. Haluda, good to see you. Bubba says, Mason is trash, Scruggs is mid, Titus is mid, Patterson's mid, Tunsil is old and spoiled. Tunsil's still playing at a high level, still does his job, and his run blocking's as good as it's been in the past couple of seasons. Hard to be very critical of Laramie Tunsil. Now, does he set a weird tone for the offensive line? Does he set them up in a weird way because of the way he acts and they follow him? Certainly. That's a conversation that myself and Landry Locker have said before and had that conversation before. Deadline is passed. Caserio did nothing to shore up the line. No confidence at all. Well, he didn't shore up the wide receiver room either. That's another thing that I didn't talk about when I blamed Nick Caserio. You felt like you needed Stefon Diggs. You lost Stefon Diggs before the trade deadline and then didn't go out there and do anything at the trade deadline to bring in someone to replace him. And Tank Dell's regression, that's not all on Nick Caserio, but you bet on Tank Dell. You didn't have somebody ready to replace him. You bet on John Mechie, who can't separate, can't get open on a consistent basis. You bet on Xavier Hutchinson, can't get open, can't separate on a consistent basis. You bet on Robert Woods, same thing as those previous two names, and you didn't make it happen from just a putting the best players on the field standpoint. It didn't work from the general manager. He didn't do a good enough job. Isaiah says Bobby is for sure leaving this offseason. I mean, there's got to be a change if they stay on this offensive skid through the final 5 games and whatever they do in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs. I mean, it's likely they're going to make it because the AFC South is so bad, and the Colts would have to be, damn near unstoppable to find themselves with an opportunity to catch the Texans. But they're going to make the playoffs, and that's not going to look good if this offense doesn't improve. And again, change is what we're looking for with this offense. We're not looking for them to just execute the offense better. They've had over a month and a half to just execute better. It ain't happening. So you got to play to the strengths or cover up the weaknesses of this offense. That's what you need to do as an offensive coordinator, as an offense. You can't be operating what you worked on in training camp. That's not working. Carlos brings up a good point. How about you try Gerard in the second half? If they lose to Jacksonville and the offense looks putrid, they need to try something different because it is then more important to finish strong and have a chance in the playoffs than to keep Bobby Slowik around, keep any sort of relationship going or anything like that. If they lose to Jacksonville and the offense looks bad in that game, they've got to make a change. Should it be Gerard Johnson? He's certainly the one that has a lot of momentum. He's interviewed for offensive coordinator jobs. He has a good relationship with CJ Stroud. He knows what Stroud can and can't do. He's never called offense at the NFL level, but he's a young guy, and you would think young, innovative, creative, played the position with some physical limitations due to injuries. So maybe he understands a little bit more what teams can and can't do from an offensive standpoint. So, that's something to to think about and to pay attention to if you're the Texans and you want to make a change. Bill Lazor is a guy that's called offense before. That'd be, a little bit more of an old school approach if you went with Bill Lazor. And then the other name would be Ben McDaniels, the wide receiver coach, who I'm sure has designs on calling an offense one day. He called offense in one of the training camp practices in Cleveland. I think it was the last day. So, what would he do? I think you got to look at okay, Bill Lazor's offensive assistant. Okay, he's supposed to be, he's from sort of a different line of thinking from an offensive standpoint. Maybe he'd be the one because it's a different tree. Gerard Johnson spent time in a couple of different places, a couple of different offensive systems. And then Ben McDaniels previously, the Patriots styled offense. And then in this offense, if the offense looks bad and they lose to Jacksonville, you got to make a change. The bye week's the perfect time. Give that person a whole week to cram and get ready and interview basically for the offensive coordinator job for next year. Anything will work, David says. Just stop letting Bobby call plays. We can't have the defense scoring the touchdowns. Yeah, you don't want the defense to be the only way you can put points on the board. Them and Kaimi can't do it every week. There will be weeks where they can, but they can't do it every week. Can't do it every week. Stingray says, yes, there's a sophomore slump. Caserio also made a mistake with the offensive lineman. Yep. Peter says, CJ leads the league in time to pressure. How quickly he's getting pressured from the snap. This is because the center doesn't make adjustments due to Bobby's scheme. Center doesn't make adjustments. CJ doesn't see some of the pressures. The whole scheme, the whole blocking scheme stinks. John Ryan, Cody, love you, brother. Hey, ditto, man. Appreciate you jumping in. Gridiron Sportscast. We're getting the Ravens or the Steelers and getting bounced. Yeah, that 4-5 matchup's not going to be fun, man. It is not going to be fun for this Texans team. Not going to be fun because if you don't get the Steelers or the Ravens, that means you're going to get the Chargers, which would smoke this team. The Chargers would come in here and smoke the Texans. Herbert running around, firing things up and down the field, McConkey winning out of the slot. They would smoke them. I'm not also sure the Steelers and the Ravens wouldn't also smoke them. And Denver with that defense would beat the Texans right now. So those are the teams that are 5, 6, 7, and then 3. Obviously, the AFC North loser is going to end up probably in that 5 spot. But you get smoked by a couple of teams. Blaster Lord with the super chat. If the Texans collapse, are we really going to be a destination for free agents next year once the season's over? Well, I got news for you. They spent a lot of their money already. So as far as being a destination, if you think they're going to go out there and have another free agency like they did this past year, you're expecting the wrong thing. They don't have that level of money to spend. I will also tell you this. Free agents go where the money is, okay? They go where the money and the offers are. If they want somebody and they want to pay for them, they'll get them. If they have the money and they want to be competitive with the pricing, they'll get whoever they want. I'm not worried about that. Daniil Hunter was going to go to the highest bidder, okay? Saquon Barkley went to the highest bidder. I mean, if the Texans had paid him more money, does he care about playing the Giants? Probably not, okay? He probably goes to the Houston Texans instead of the Philadelphia Eagles if they paid more money. Guys go where the money is, okay? Maybe older guys, veteran guys, they're looking for teams with situations that are a lot closer to a ring, but your typical free agent, they go where the money is, and I don't have any worry about guys not wanting to come here because the team hadn't been successful. It's actually a selling point. Hey, listen, you can help get us over the hump, and here's a big bunch of money as well. Ride shift. The best thing that can happen is the Texans win the division with as many losses as possible for a better draft pick. Well, here's the problem, ride shift. When you make the playoffs, it doesn't matter how many losses you have. The best you can do is 19th. When you make the playoffs, the wild card round losers fill out 19 to 24. So the best you can do if you make the playoffs is the 19th overall pick. Now, the 19th overall pick, it's a pretty good pick. You can do a lot with that. You can move up from 19 and go get somebody that you really want, not pay a king's ransom. You can move back from 19 because teams want to come up there and maybe get a quarterback or a wide receiver or a big-time edge player, something like that. You can do a lot of moving with that, but 19 is the best you're going to do if you have a really bad record and you lose in the first round of the playoffs. Now, if you win a playoff game, the worst you can do is 25th. Your divisional round losers occupy 25 to 28. So the Texans, they make the playoffs. The worst they're going to do, / best, would be 19th, depending on how you want to phrase it. So Eric says, I'm no genius, and I saw the writing on the wall early on O-line. Early on, O-line is key. How did Caserio not know this? And what pissed me off the most, they had all the money to spend. He did nothing to add 2 guards. They played and are playing the offensive line that they've wanted for over a year. That was their evaluation, that Kenyon Green was going to be fine, that Titus Howard was going to be fine at right tackle, that Shaq Mason wasn't going to fall off, and Juice Scruggs was going to be their center. Like, that was their evaluation. And that's what they thought was going to be the case. And those guys have not been good. They weren't good together. And thank God Jared Patterson's on this team. They had something to try there at the center spot. Dylan LaFerb asks, speaking of wide receivers, why is Hunter Renfrow still a free agent? Why not kick the tires on him? I'll go to my grave thinking Hunter Renfrow could still play in the NFL. I don't know why. Maybe he got fat. I don't know. I don't know why Renfrow's not getting more opportunities. I promise you he can play. I don't know if he's going to be good. I know he can play, though. I promise you. I had to turn my fan on. I'm getting hot. I got to turn the fan on because y'all don't want to see me take the shirt off here. All right. Sean Holmes with the Super Chat. Sean, appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for the support of the channel. Abigail brings up a good point. Hope that CJ is not stubborn or is not damaged by D'Amico Ryans' stubbornness. It's a good point. You can't have something that happens in 2024 drastically affect CJ Stroud. I would also tell you that really good players can overcome a bad season. Like, you can dip a little bit. Herbert's a great example. He had a couple of dip seasons, and then he was right back. So not super worried about that. It's definitely a talking point, though. Sean with another super chat. Do you think it's the O-line's fault or the O-linemen coaches? I think everyone associated with the offensive line is to blame. I primarily would say I blame the players because it's their job to take care of the business. It's their job to be good. It's their job to get the blocks. D'Amico Ryans said this week, hey, they just didn't block long enough in the run game. How's that happen? Okay, so it's there. I blame the players first. Then I blame the O-line coach for not executing the offense. Then I blame the offensive coordinator for not changing the way that they operate the offense. Like, they can't execute what Slowik wants. That falls on them and the O-line coach. So, Sean, appreciate the super chat, my friend. Thank you so much. We need more Cody Stoots live streams. Say you boogie, ask and you shall receive. I will do more live streams here for the end of the year. Got some fun stuff coming up with SNL as well. Nick Rodriguez. Hey, Cody, do you know if we beat the Jags, do we clinch? We'll be making a video on that. They cannot clinch with a victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars. They need the magic number, and the magic number expert right now is Landry Locker. The magic number is 3. So they need a combination of their victories and Colts losses. 3 is the number. So they cannot clinch Sunday. No. All the rivals upgraded before the deadline. Yes, and I went through and looked and just kind of like Mike Williams didn't do anything for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they tried. Deontay Johnson's not doing anything for the Baltimore Ravens, but they tried. They went and got him. Amari Cooper's been pretty good for the Buffalo Bills. He's helped them out a lot. And they've had actually an injury to Keon Coleman and he's helped sustain them. But the Texans felt like they were good at wide receiver. Didn't go make a move. I think just getting Diggs wasn't enough for the receiver room, but we were really getting Dalton involved as much as last year. He's got some of the most catches in football without a touchdown. Dalton Schultz does. The fantasy community's been all over that. How he's getting a ton of receptions and not getting in the end zone. Would Noah Brown make a difference? Do they have one more victory if Noah Brown's on this team? I would say yes. I believe they do. But so it's hard to exactly say that, but I do believe they have one more victory if Noah Brown was still on this team. He's better than Mechie and Woods and Sims and Hutchinson. Uriel Garza asks, what's the latest on Christian Harris? Jonathan Alexander reported after the bye week, so Miami for those final 4 games. At this point, I mean, I don't even know if Christian Harris is working out. He's got to work out. Then they got to open the practice window. Then he's got to practice. Then they got to feel comfortable putting him on the field. So, I mean, he's still weeks away at best, unless he's had some secret workout that nobody knows about. He's still weeks away at best. Uriel, I appreciate the super chat, my friend. Thank you. Jeff says, we know the playbook has good plays. Let someone else save the season. Or just let someone else try to run the good plays and run simple plays, easier plays. John with an inventive idea. Let Bobby Slowik call the first half and then let Gerard Johnson call the second half. Not bad. Not bad. I don't hate that idea. Yeah, 3-5. Hell, get those, 1-2, bang, ball's got to be out. Get that going. Too many long developing plays, man. Too many long developing plays. Rick says Butterbean, as he calls Bobby Slowik, Butterbean Bobby, is a defensive analyst at PFF. Put him in the box upstairs, let him analyze opponents real time, let Case and CJ call the plays. I mean, look, Case Keenum, I think he's going to be a coach one day. I don't know. I'm handing over play calling duties to a injured reserve quarterback and the second-year quarterback. The offensive scheme sucks. And this is, I mean, the summary. This is the best summary of it. Cody's mad, huh? Cody represents us. I am not happy with how they've operated this offense. Not at all. Not at all. Should the Texans think about Ewers as a backup? No, they have their backup for next year, and I believe Quinn Ewers is going to play another year of college football. I believe Ewers should transfer, take a big payday somewhere, play one more year in college, and then get drafted. If he gets drafted, I will heavily bet against the team that drafts him if they make him the starter. Players won't come here with a loser OC. You pay them enough money, they'll play anywhere. Function says the second half drought is weird, but let's be honest, team is about where it should be. The hype level was too high. Yes and no. I mean, should they be? I mean, are they winning the AFC South with ease? Yes. Is it because they're awesome? Not really. It's because the other teams kind of suck. I feel like they should squarely be in that second tier, and they're not squarely in that second tier. I never put them in the top tier with KC and what probably Buffalo is right now, what people thought Baltimore was going to be. I never put them there. But they should squarely be in that second tier. They really should. You think having a former head coach on your staff is a disadvantage for the Texans? Do you think having a former head coach on your staff is a disadvantage for the Texans? Well, they don't have one on their staff. Thinking through they don't have a former head coach. You think, or maybe you're asking not having a former. What? Well, I mean, if Wade Phillips was on this staff as a defensive assistant, like what does he do? Like D'Amico's pretty good at game management. I'm trying to think of like a name that would make sense from an offensive standpoint. Like, I don't know. It's just, I don't think that's a big talking point. I don't think it matters. Where's the accountability for penalties? Carlos, your guess is as good as mine. They're 31st in penalties last year. They're 30th in penalties per game this year. Tunsil's got 15 of them this season. So, you're not benching him. Tank Talk podcast, my buddies up there in the Northeast. You think Slowik's out of the running for a head coaching gig next season? Absolutely. Unless he has the best 5-game stretch that we've ever seen from an offensive coordinator and an offense, there ain't no way in hell somebody's handing the reins of an organization to Bobby. No way. No chance in hell. You think Fadakasi is the key to our run game? Joe's not having a ton of success without him. Tyler, what are we doing here? Fadakasi is a defensive lineman. Let's see. Albert, what would it take to make you a believer in this team being serious contenders, winning out? Well, yeah, if they won out, if they won out, they'd be 12-5, and they'd have at the very least, they would be the third seed, probably the second seed if they won out. I don't know. Buffalo's probably not got 3 losses left in them, so they'd be the third seed or a really impressive fourth seed. And think about what winning out would mean. Winning out would mean that you handle your business against the Miami Dolphins. That would mean that you handled your business on the road in Kansas City, and that would mean that you beat the Baltimore Ravens as well. So, yeah, I'd believe a lot if they won out. That ain't happening, though. But, yeah, if they did that, you should definitely believe in them. Sean G., good to see you, Sean. While I agree that Mason hasn't played well compared to last year, I'm confused how signing a veteran to an extension who played relatively well last year is a mistake by Nick Caserio. Can you clarify? He extended Mason before he saw Mason play at all. So he extended Mason. He made him an extremely highly paid guard. And I suppose the argument would be, hey, if you let him play out the final year of his deal, then he probably is even more expensive than he is now, and he probably still stinks. So I understand that argument, but sight unseen, Shaq Mason got a contract extension, and it is a hefty contract. And the Texans are really kind of locked into it with the way that they built it and organized it. They save like $2 million if they cut him in the offseason. So it was a big, hefty contract. I don't know that you didn't have to extend him. I don't know that you had to pay him that much. The conversation would be he played well enough last year that he might have gotten this exact contract, and it had been a longer and more expensive thing to get rid of him. So I certainly understand that. But again, Mason as a veteran, he was okay. He was good last year. You expected him to be okay this year at worst, and he's just been bad. So that's just been bad luck, But again, extending him before he played it down, don't know. Don't know about that. Doyle Keister with a super chat. Everyone forgets this team is 1 1/3 way into a massive rebuild. Won't carry water for the ish players, but thinking we're going all the way was a stretch. Yeah, but they accelerated this thing with the way that they spent in the offseason, the way that they drafted and addressed certain needs. They accelerated this thing like they thought they had a chance at some really impressive stuff. So, yes, rebuild, sure, but they pushed a lot of their chips in because they felt like it was ready to go. And it's not – they're not there. They haven't had it. Look, Diggs getting hurt, that sucks. That takes a lot of juice out of the offense. They have one more win if Diggs is still healthy. Yeah, probably. So I think that's something to consider too. They've had some bad luck. I would tell you Mason's bad luck. I would tell you that Dixon Hurts bad luck that they couldn't avoid. But they accelerated things to where they were supposed to be a lot better than they have been so far this season. Ride Shift says, I like your choice of drinks. Oh, you mean the nondescript could be your beer here drinks? Cover up that logo a little bit. Quit blaming Bobby. Give D'Amico the GM he wants, not the one he was given. Has Caserio done a bad job? Caserio's made some mistakes, but has he done a bad job? Daniil Hunter's one of the absolute best free agent signings in football this past year. Kamari Lassiter is incredible. He's one of the best rookie cornerbacks. Kalen Bullock's one of the best rookie safeties. Cade Stover looks like he's going to be a solid player eventually. Azeez Al-Shire is incredible. Caserio's made some mistakes, but Caserio's had some wins too. I don't think Adam Peters makes this team significantly better. They inherited some of these offensive linemen too, by the way. Arthur says, too many long developing plays. They ran 3 7-step drops last game. The scheme is fine. Yeah, scheme's not fine. Scheme sucks. They can't block anybody. The blocking for it sucks. And they don't have enough quick answers for CJ Stroud. So the scheme's not good enough. Is it too early to ask you who you're eyeing in the draft next year? Yes. While there's a chance they're winning the AFC South, I'm not talking about the draft. Okay? I'm not talking about the draft. We're going to talk about the draft a ton. I love the draft. I will overload you with draft content. We will talk about it a ton when it's draft season, but it ain't draft season right now. I'll answer this question. They lose to Jacksonville. Re-sign Brevin Jordan and Andrew Beck. Brevin Jordan's hurt. He's under contract. I probably wouldn't sign him next year coming off of a major knee injury. And Andrew Beck, it's not like he's on some other team killing it for them. So did they make a mistake not having a fullback? Maybe. Does the fullback fix some of the issues that they've had blocking? Probably not. Brevin Jordan, head and shoulders above Schitz. I think you mean Schultz, and I think you did that on purpose. I would like to see what Brevin Jordan brings to the table. He can win. He can win quickly from the tight end spot, and his blocking had improved before he had the serious knee injury. You think John Mechie has some more trade value after a couple of plays? No. Along with possibly trading Woods, he's a free agent at the end of the year, so he's done. You can't just bench the entire team. No, you can't, but you can bench some people, and you can fire coaches. You can fire coaches. Schultz can't block and catch. Well, that's not true. He can catch. He just can't block. Nick Crawford with the super chat. Nick, appreciate you. Do you have any insight on what Caserio's job and what's D'Amico's combo, for example? Does D'Amico choose his guys? Caserio handles contract. Does Caserio say, these are your guys? My understanding is if D'Amico wants something, D'Amico Ryans gets what he wants. So if he has a player that he really, really wants, he gets that player. I know he wanted a lot of defensive linemen this year. They went out and got Mario Edwards. They went out and got Daniil Hunter. They went out and got Tim Settle. They went out and got Foley Fatukasi. They tried to get Eric Armstead. They tried to bring back Sheldon Rankins. So my understanding is D'Amico has really kind of final say. Caserio obviously has to maneuver things and sets things up, and they seem to be very in lockstep. I mean, they were both very excited about Kalen Bullock when you saw it on the draft coverage. So I would tell you the job is Caserio's to scout them, identify them, run it past D'Amico. He has his way in, and they kind of come to a conclusion, and ultimately D'Amico has the final say. Cody, on his question, are we done? No, they're not done. They're not done, but there's a lot that has to get better for them to have a chance. This is just factually incorrect. The Shanahan offense is the most successful offense in the NFL currently. This is wrong. That's not true. So the Shanahan offense actually has been figured out by the NFL. Guys who stick to the Shanahan principles are having a lot of trouble. Guys who evolve, I think probably the best example is LaFleur in Green Bay, Sean McVay and what he's been able to accomplish the few years he's been in L.A. The guys that evolve from it are actually doing better than the tried and true Shanahan guys. So this is factually incorrect. Bye week couldn't come soon enough. Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Tamac McMillan wants to fire Caserio, saying that he can't draft for S. He drafted the offensive and defensive rookie of the year last year. Tank Dell was excellent as a rookie. Juice Scruggs doesn't look like a good pick now. And then he drafted one of the best corners, one of the best safeties this year. He's drafting fine. Did you hear Steven Nelson say that Matt Burke is a bad DC and that's why D'Amico spends all of his time on defense? I mean, Matt Burke could be a genius and D'Amico would still spend time on defense. That's what he's involved with. That's his side of the football. Caserio to new squats contributed to New England's success. The more he got involved in New England, the worse they got. Okay, that he's been fine here. Bring Rick Smith back. He fixed our O-line in 2 years, in 07 and 08. I mean, did he? Did he really? I mean, Charlie Cashley drafted Eric Winston and Charles Spencer. Also, Rick didn't have a job anywhere. Like, if the league was clamoring for Rick Smith, he'd have a job. If only we could put Tunsil's talent into Kendrick Green and Jarrett Patterson. You'd have two hell of an interior guys if they had Tunsil's level of talent, but interior. Offense is so bad, went from Cody drinking Diet Mountain Dew to Miller Lite. Yeah, well, it'll end in a couple hours. Kroger's got buy two, get three on their soft drinks. So I went and got me some new Diet Mountain Dews today and some Mug Root Beer Zeros. Love those Mug Root Beer Zeros. No caffeine at night, so you just fire one of those down before you go to sleep and then ruin your sleep. Let's see here. Carlos, y'all forgetting the years we just wanted innovation. Our invitation to the dance, anything can happen in the playoffs. We fix our stuff. It's any given Sunday. Get in there and make it happen. This rushing attack on a good day and this defense on a good day can win you a football game. Certainly at home. You go on the road to Buffalo. You go on the road to Pittsburgh. You go on the road to Kansas City. You go on the road to Baltimore. Probably not. But the defense and the rushing attack can win you a football game at home. You got to get in there, though. You got to make sure you get in there. You got to get in there with some momentum, too. I wouldn't be mad if Doug Peterson's a free agent after the year as a new OC for the Texans. Maybe. I kind of want a college guy. I got to put together an OC list. That's what Landry and I are talking about tomorrow morning on SNL. Next year, this crew comes back knowing how to do things they learned this year. Every painful loss is a chance to learn. Doyle with the super chat. I got news for you. They haven't learned from them in season, so I don't know if they're picking up a whole bunch of information, learning from it here in the off season, Doyle. I like the optimism, but I don't see that happening. Just kick the tires on Mike Munchak as an offensive assistant. I heard he lives here. I mean, they definitely got to do something with the offensive line. Got to get a new offensive line coach in here. So you want it to be Munchak? Sure. Schultz blocking his comedy art. It's not great. It's not great. Gone are the days of what was the blocking tight end's name? Not Clay. Clay's not the guy's name. What was the blocking tight end's name? Oh, man. Hold on. It was like 2 years ago. The 2022 Houston Texans. He played for like a very small school. 2 years ago, it was Mason Schreck. He played, he's there as like the blocking tight end. Played him a little bit. O.J. Howard blocked a little bit. Maybe it was the previous year. What was the guy? Oh, Anthony Auclair. Gone are the days of Anthony Auclair. No more blocking only tight ends. Is it weird that I prefer Kaimi to be kicking 50-yarders than inside the 25? No, it's not weird because he seemingly misses some of those shorties. Comedy Pranks 99 says, been watching you since your radio days. Keep up the good work. Channel growing. Let's freaking go. Hitting my bong for you right now. Let's freaking go. Comedy Pranks, appreciate the super chat, man. And enjoy your marijuana. Appreciate the kind words as well. I wouldn't let Schultz block a kitty cat out of my 8-year-old's way. Yeah, that's not good. Camera's lagging, Cody. The internet where I live is not doing great, so we're going to try to make this work the best we can. Sorry. Bring back Diggs on a team-friendly deal. Keep Brevin because his size and big catch rate, as well as Nico, first and foremost, fix the offensive line. I mean, bring back Brevin Jordan and bring back Stefon Diggs. They don't help you week one. So, like, you need players to help you week one next year. Like, yeah, you can bring them back and have them be like mid-season boosts, but they don't help you. They don't help you in week one next year. So Ben Johnson and LaFleur are running the same plays. They even use the same terminology. Well, you know what? Ben Johnson and LaFleur have better offensive lines. If the offensive line was better, I'm sure Bobby would be better. Bobby didn't have a good offensive line. He's still trying to run the same crap. Stoots, how I've missed this with the little Josh, appreciate you jumping up. This just feels so gross. It is, of course. Of course, we don't have a seat at the table. Of course, we aren't good enough. Of course, our QB fell apart. Of course, it's Houston. Yeah, it feels SOT a little bit, same old Texans, but they've got opportunities to change that. They just have a lot of work to do that. I've always said Bobby's run scheme's horrible. Nothing looks in sync. Yeah, a lot of times this season when they've had stuff work, it's been because Joe Mixon's made stuff happen. Let's try Kendrick Green. I'd be in favor of that. Should we have Dare kick field goals under 40 yards? No. Dare almost handed the Titans a touchdown last week. What the hell happened there? I'm not a soda drinker. I like Hawaiian Punch. I think they got those in 12 packs too. You trust us to improve the offense this offseason? Yeah, I do. I mean, D'Amico Ryans is not going to stand pat. They had a solid defensive line last year, and he revamped that and turned it into an even better defensive line. He's not letting that stand with the offense. A couple more minutes here. Darren Fells, blocking guy for a while. Bill O'Brien loved him. Every Cody live stream's a reason to hit the booze over the last 5 weeks anyway. Not been good. Want some actual success coaching offense successfully? Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'd rather watch paint dry than Slowik offense. Probably not alone. Starlink, Cody. Yeah, we're definitely going to talk to the internet people about making sure the internet's working a little bit better. Pete asked to email me some info on that. You think Gerard Johnson can be a good play caller in our future? Off subject. I mean, if they lose to Jacksonville and the offense is the reason, then give him a shot. Figure it out. Let him have a 4-game audition, 5-game if they make the playoffs, which they probably will. Let him have a 5-game audition for the offensive coordinator job. Do I believe in Gerard? Yes. I've hosted radio with Gerard. I've talked football with Gerard a lot. I believe highly in his skills and the way that he builds things, and I believe one day he's going to be an offensive coordinator. If he has success doing that, he's going to be a head coach. Give him a shot. Not opposed to it. Shaq Mason, David Johnson of the O-line? No, because Shaq was good last year. He just fell off a cliff this year, and they somehow, for some reason, can't bench him. Do you think Caserio makes any moves or trades, or maybe signs Xavier Howard on the bye week? Well, trade deadline's over. Xavier Howard's not playing for a reason. They're fine at corner when Lassiter and Stingley are healthy. Now, with No Kadar Holman now, because he's going on IR, with No Kadar Holman, they needed a backup because they seemingly don't trust Okuda. He was a healthy scratch. The pass blocking scheme seems ridiculously cute. Why is our running back blocking on interior defensive linemen while Ty's blocking nobody in particular? Young Costa, you ask a good question. What about if they creep past Jacksonville? I'd probably still think about making a change. Let Stoots call the offense at this point. I know he won't call it run on 3rd and 20. Yeah, I'll just call 4 verts and hope we get a pass interference. I think we need to activate Desmond King to be the slot corner. Well, Desmond King is not on the roster. Desmond King got cut last week. Oh, did Desmond King get signed to the practice squad of the Ravens? Yeah, okay. Desmond King's on the Ravens practice squad. So I guess you could sign him to the active roster if you wanted, but he didn't seem too happy with his departure. I don't know why you feel this way, but H-Town's Ultimate, I got a sneaking suspicion we're going to peak in time for the playoffs. Let's get all the crummy games out of the way and start rolling. Well, they've been crummy, okay? Crummy. All I know is we sparked after the game in Jacksonville last year. Got to hope for a repeat. Got to hope for a repeat of that. Prime Dwayne Brown better than Tunsil? Better than... Yeah, probably not. Is D'Amico too friendly with his players? No. Bobby uses Ask Madden? No, because they would call some simple stuff. How was the Dallas Stadium food compared to ours? Beautiful stadium for sure. I feel like they had a lot of unique options when I walked around. I only walked around a little bit. I feel like they had a lot of unique options, but it all felt very like it was like pizza, but it wasn't like just like stadium pizza. It was like a pizza place. It was like barbecue, like a barbecue. Like I think the Texans setup is really good. A story I'm going to work on for Houston football next year is the evolution of a stadium food item all the way to when they unveil it for the stadium. That's something I'm going to work for Houston football next year. All right. That'll do it for the live stream. Appreciate everybody jumping in. If you play daily fantasy, Prize Picks is the way to do it. Link in the description down below. Use the code Stoots, STOOTS, STOOTS. Use the link in the description down below, and you can sign up. You play your first 5, you get $50. Prize Picks, the best, easiest way to play daily fantasy. Support them. They do a great job supporting the channel, so appreciate them. You see the wall art here? This is available for purchase. Link in the description. It is a one-of-a-kind. It's card art. They're playing cards that have the king, the queen, the jack, and the joker in there. I got to fix that one because something messed up on that one. But one of a kind. It's like, you throw a deck of cards, you pick it up. It's a different order every time, yada, yada. I think these are really cool. Be a great gift for a man cave poker player in your life. So check those out. SNL tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't miss out on that. Myself, Landry Locker. Have some more stuff for you on the YouTube channel tomorrow. HOUfootball.com. Links in the description down below. You folks know how we end the live stream each and every time. This is my hope for you. This is my charge for you as well. I want you to eat good. I want you to sleep good. I want you to be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks, everybody.